Welcome back. Thank you for clicking on part 2. Let's go ahead. Do you remember what area is? For perimeter, I just told you add all the sides outside together. What about area? Area means we have to measure all the space inside the shape. Do you remember that time we were counting the squares inside our rectangle and the squares inside our square? Yes, that is what it means to find the area. Do you know that that is the reason that we write the answer in centimeter square or meter square? That is the reason, because we are counting all the squares inside the shape. Okay, so area measures the space inside a shape, not outside anymore, inside a shape. Okay, now for a square. To find the area of a square, we have to multiply side times side. For perimeter, we add. For area, we multiply side times side. Okay? So, if the side of my square, like I have a square here, can you see this? I said to you earlier that all the sides are the same. So where I have my letter S, is the same as the second letter S, and where I have the two arrows. So if where I have one letter S now is 5, all the other sides will be 5. So I am not adding this time. What I will do is 5 multiply by 5, and the area will be 25 meters square or centimeter square. This is how we find area of a square. Now what about a rectangle? Rectangle is length multiplied by width. I have shown you where the length of a rectangle is and where the width of a rectangle is. So for my rectangle here, if my width is 5 centimeter and my length is 10 centimeter, this time around I am not adding all the sides. I will only multiply W and L, or L and W. So my L now is 10. My W is 5. So my area now will be 10 multiplied by 5, which is length multiplied by width. And that is 50 meter square or centimeter square. Okay? All right, let's go ahead. Let's see mass. Mass, what do we measure in mass? And what are the units of mass? We measure heavy and light. Do you remember that? Yes. Grams and kilograms are the two units for measuring mass. What does gram measure? Light objects like your Pringles, like vegetables, like a paper clip and a stapler. They are little, so they can be measured in grams. What about kilograms? Kilograms is for heavy objects like what? Watermelon, basket of oranges. Remember that? Yes. So they are heavy, we measure them in kilograms. Also remember that on our block, grams is the smaller unit, and 1000 grams will make 1 kilogram. Kilogram, on the other hand, is our bigger block, so it's the bigger unit. How do we then convert? Do you remember? If we want to change from kilogram to gram, we're changing big to small. And what do? Look at the arrow pointing up from big to small, we multiply. And when we want to change from gram to kilogram, what do? Look at the arrow pointing from gram to kilogram, we divide. That's small to big, we divide. And don't forget, you multiply by 1000, divide also by 1000, depending on what you're doing. If you want to change from gram to kilogram, you have to divide by 1000. If you're changing from kilogram to gram, you have to multiply also by 1000. Now let's look at how to read the scale. I know you remember this very well, where we talked about looking at how to read the numbers on the scale. Now look at this scale. The numbers that you see on the scale are measuring in kilograms. Can you see that the scale is even writing kg? It means that it is measuring in kilograms. Okay? Now, these single numbers you see, take a look at the scale. You have number 1. Can you see that? Number 2, 3, and 4. Those single numbers are kilograms. Okay, so that 1 is 1 kilogram, 2 is 2 kilograms, 3 is 3 kilograms, and 4 is 4 kilograms. Now, remember also that the lines in the middle are measuring in grams. And how many grams is each line? 100 grams. Okay? Each line is 100 grams. So if, for example, the arrow on this scale was pointing to one line after number 1. Look at number 1. Okay, now if it was pointing to one line after number 1, it means we have 1 kilogram and 100 grams. Remember I said to you that those single numbers represent kilogram. So we have 1 kilogram and 100 grams. Of course, remember that 1000 grams make 1 kilogram. So let us see this very scale. What is the mass of the object on this scale? There is an object on it, maybe a cake, maybe a stone, I don't know, but there is an object on it. Let's see what it measures. Where is the arrow pointing to? That's the first thing you have to look at. Okay, you have to check the number that the arrow is pointing to and read the numbers in kilograms, grams, or kilograms and grams. Now, the arrow has passed number 3, is going towards number 4, but it has not reached number 4. So it's somewhere in the middle before 500. Now, how do we measure? Remember I said that each line in the middle is 100 gram each, and each of the single number is kilogram. So now we have 3 kilogram. Because it has gone past 3, we will say it is 3 kilogram. And how many lines are in between? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's a total of 400 gram. The lines in the middle are reading gram. So we have 4 lines, each one is 100, that's 400 gram. So this is 3 kilograms and 400 grams. We can say that the measurement on the scale is 3.4 kilograms, if we read it all in kilograms, or 3,400 grams, if we convert it to grams, or 3 kilograms and 400 grams. Now go to volume. For volume, we have 2 units as well, milliliters and liters. Milliliters and liters. And remember, liters is for plenty. That's much. The quantity is much, like a gallon of water, bucket of water. And milliliters is just for smaller quantity, like the cylinder tube that we had in our workbook that measures in milliliters. Little quantity. Okay, look at our block. Our block shows us that milliliters has a smaller quantity and liters is the bigger block. Okay, and remember, 1000 milliliters make 1 liter. Okay, and when you're also moving from liters to milliliters, look at the arrow pointing from milliliters going to pointing from liters, to milliliters. What do? Multiply. That's big to small, multiply. What about small to big? From milliliters to liters. If you want to change from milliliters to liters, we divide. Now students, finally let's see the estimated and actual measurement. Do you remember that? When we said that to estimate means you are guessing. you just guess, I think this thing will measure 4 kilograms. Then you now go and check the actual measurement and see whether your measurement is more than or less than. So let me take some examples. I'll measure in length my foot. Let me measure my foot. Now first let me guess what it will be before I measure. For my foot, I am guessing that it will be, let me guess. I think my foot is going to be 25 centimeter. I think that's what I guess. All right, but now let me measure and see. I have a ruler here. Let me try to measure. I'm trying to measure. Wow, my foot is actually 23 centimeters. So what have I done? Well, my estimation is close. It's fun to actually estimate or guess, and then you check the actual one. It's always fun to do that. So I think my estimate was just 2 centimeters bigger than the length of my foot. It's still okay. Now let me see mass. I have some cucumbers that I just bought, and I will estimate. Let me try to see. I think these cucumbers should be like 350 grams. I don't think it's up to 1 kilogram. Yeah. So now let me go and check. I will check now what is on the measurements for the cucumbers. Let me see. Wow, I have 370 grams. That's what the cucumber measures. So it means that here my estimation was 20 centimeter or 20 grams lower or less than the actual measurement. But it's still okay. At least my guess was close. Now let's see. I still have a water. Let's go to volume. I have a bottle of water here. I will not look at the measurements. I won't look at it. But I'll just guess. Let me guess what the measurement of this bottle of water is. I think it should be 350 milliliters. Yes. Now let me check. Guess what it is? The actual measurement is 330 milliliters. I think I still had a good guess. It was still quite okay. It's 330 milliliters. Well, students, this was all about what we learned in measures, and it was quite an interesting lesson. This is where year 4 lesson ends, and it was a very good time having the lessons with you. Congratulations, students. Thumbs up. You all did a very good job in year 4, and I'm wishing you the very best as you go on into the next stage. I hope that you become better, and I hope that you become smarter and study harder. Always stay safe, always be good, and all the best. Bye from Mr. Lapo. Bye bye. Well, we looked at measures, remember? When we talked about length, capacity or volume, and we also talked about weight. What were the topics that we looked at in Unit 11? We studied length. And on the length, remember we had perimeter, we had area. And then we also looked at mass and volume. These were the units we had. Unit 1 was length, we had perimeter in Unit 2, Unit 3 was area, 4 was mass, and then we had volume. We still had word problems, remember? And I think we had 1 or 2 other units. So in total, we had about 7 units that we did. It was really a long one. Well, let's see how far we have learnt. Let's know if we actually learned so much from Unit 11. We're going to have this warm-up activity. I have asked you these questions over and over again, so you should not forget. It means you should be able to remember and answer them. Now, the first question is, what are the units of length? Remember that length we said we measure long? How long is this pencil? Or how short are you? So, how do we measure length? What are the units that we use? I'll wait for you to answer these questions in 30 seconds, and the time starts counting now. So, what are the units of length? What are the units of mass? And what are the units of volume? So quickly answer the questions and I'll wait for you to answer them. You can write it down. I will tell you the answer, but you will mark it yourself. Check whether you got the answer correctly. We have just 10 seconds more. Have you finished? Units of length are, write it down. Units of mass are, and the units of volume too. Okay, now the time has stopped. So, what are your answers? Okay, now can I go ahead and give the answers? Are you true giving your own answers? All right, let's have the answers. The units of length. Do you remember that I mentioned to you all the time that when you remember MCMK, you will remember the units of length. It is only units of length that we have 4 units. We have 4 units for the units of length. And what are the units? Millimeters, centimeters, meters, and kilometers. Do you now remember? MCMK. M for millimeters, C for centimeters, M for meters, and K for kilometers. What about mass? This one we have just 2 of them. Do you remember them? Grams and kilograms. We did that not so long ago. Grams and kilograms. Grams for light objects, kilograms for heavy objects. What about the millimeters? You remember we said it's tiny. Millimeters for tiny objects, centimeters for a little bit bigger object, meters for larger objects, and kilometers for roads and distance. Then let's look at volume. For volume, we have 2 of them also, milliliters and liters. You remember that? Milliliters and liters. Milliliters for measuring little quantity and liters for measuring so much quantity. So let's go ahead. Now let's start with our length review. Remember when we studied length, we used our rulers a lot. We measured a lot of things using our rulers. And now that we know the units of length, remember what millimeters measures? Millimeters measures tiny objects like an insect, your fingernail, a coin, paper clips, very little objects. Now what about centimeters? Centimeters is for a little bit bigger objects, like, remember I said to you then, measure your workbook, and you can measure also your pencil, you can measure your school bag, you can measure your pencil case, even your foot. You can measure your foot with centimeters. And what about meters? Meters is for larger objects like a tree outside the house. You want to measure your daddy's car. You want to measure the length of the room, the playground, an airplane. Those are larger objects. We measure them in meters. How about kilometers? Remember, kilometers is the only different one that you use for roads. It measures very large lengths like roads and distance between roads. And look at our block, our length block. Here, our length block shows us that millimeters is the smallest, centimeters, then meters, and kilometers. Do you remember that 10 millimeters make 1 centimeter, and 100 centimeters make 1 meter, and 1000 meters make 1 kilometer? I hope you remember that. Whenever we want to change from one unit to another unit, we need to remember that. And also, remember that when we want to change big to small, what do? Multiply. And when we are changing small to big, what do? We divide. All right, great job. Let's go ahead. Let's now go to perimeter. We are still looking at length. What is perimeter? I said to you then that perimeter is to measure all the sides outside a 2D shape. You measure all the total distance around the shape. And we looked at the perimeter of a square. We said the perimeter of a square is side times 4, or side plus side plus side plus side. Why? Because all the sides of a square are the same. So if one side is 5 centimeter, it means all the other sides will be 5 centimeters. So if I want to find the perimeter of my square, I will simply say 5 multiplied by 4 sides of the square. That is 20. Or 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. And that is what? 20. So this is one side of the square. It's the two sides are the same. The one with the arrow and the one with the S. They are the same. And this is the second side. The two sides are also the same. In fact, all the 4 sides are the same. Now let's look at a rectangle. For a rectangle, we have 2 lengths and 2 widths. It has 4 sides. We have 2 lengths and 2 widths. To find the perimeter, we multiply length times 2 plus width times 2. Or we can say length plus width because we are adding all the sides together. But remember, the length is always the same. Now look at the length of this rectangle. Where the arrow dropped and where you have letter L is the length of this rectangle. And the two sides are the same. Can you see that they are facing each other? They are opposite each other. They are the same and they are both called the length. So where I have the arrow, if that side is 8 centimeter, where the letter L is will also be 8 centimeters because they are the same. That is the length of the rectangle. What about the width? Look at the width. Where I have the arrow and letter W. W is for width. So can you see that where the second arrow came in and the letter W, they are opposite each other and they are the same. So if where I have my letter W is 6 centimeter, where I have the arrow opposite will also be 6 centimeter. The two sides are going to be the same. All right, now that we understand, let's go to area. Sorry students, the lesson is not over yet. Please, you have to click on the second link to continue the lesson. See you there.